Hello, I'm going to record chapter 3 of God's Grace Keeps Pace. Um, Chapter 3, Great is thy faithfulness. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore, I will hope in him. Lamentations 3:22 through 24. Chapter 3. The due date of our second baby was December the 22nd, 1977. I was excited because that would be our 8th wedding anniversary as well as my dad's birthday. We still grieved his loss greatly. What a special blessing it would be if this baby was born on that doubly special day. Christmas was the next potential special date, followed by New Year's. But the 22nd came and went, and so did Christmas. My 5'2" frame now waddled. My tummy was so large I couldn't even see my feet. I was more than ready to meet our baby. In 1977, although ultrasound imaging had been invented, it wasn't used other than for a crisis situation, so we didn't know what our baby's gender would be. In that day, the big gender reveal was literally on the day the baby was born. I decorated the nursery in neutral colors of green and yellow as we awaited our little one's arrival. Mike teased about needing a tax write-off for 1977 as he hoped for a December birth. I hoped for a December birth too, but because of those swollen feet and my huge out in front tummy that preceded me as I walked into a room, 4-year-old Ben just wanted a brother or a sister to play with, and the sooner the better. December the 31st came, and since there'd been no birth, we invited friends over for a simple New Year's Eve dinner. Their sons and Ben played as we adults chatted around the crackling wood fire. At about 10 p.m., my tummy felt very strange, and soon I recognized that strange feeling as labor pains. We were very excited. Our baby was getting ready to be born. Maybe Mike would get his tax write-off after all. We'd soon find out. We grabbed my overnight bag and headed to the hospital. Our sweet Ben was born in 1973 in Pauls Valley, Oklahoma, and we'd since moved to Oklahoma City. The hospital we chose for this birth was a 15-minute drive from our home and was fairly new, having only been built in 1974. It was a yet to be built up area of town, and on a New Year's Eve, it was not a happening place. The board staff was very excited to see us. By the time we arrived and filled out the necessary paperwork, it was 11:30. My labor pains were getting closer and closer together. I was hurriedly prepped for the delivery room as they helped me change into a hospital gown and climb onto a cold metal table. They told me to sit as straight as I could so they could give me a spinal tap. It's not the discomfort of the injection that I remember, but rather the remarks the anesthesiologist made to the nurse and to me. Look how crooked her back is. He said to me, have you ever been diagnosed with scoliosis? At that moment, I didn't care how my back looked, and I wanted to say, did you know it's rude to talk behind someone's back? As I sat awkwardly, leaning forward, cross-legged, balancing my bulging tummy on that icy table, I just wanted to see my baby and my feet. In 1978, that hospital still didn't allow dads into the delivery room. So Mike kissed me goodbye and waited in a new to be father's waiting area alone. My mom was sent to yet another waiting room, and she too was the only one there. As they whisked me through the delivery room doors, one of the nurses commented to the other, guys, we could have the first baby of 1978. Later, I heard them say from my awkward prone position, it's midnight, and I knew Mike wouldn't be getting his little tax write-off. Tick tock, tick tock. Another nurse called the nurses station from the delivery room and asked them to check with the major hospitals in Oklahoma City to see if a baby had been born yet for 78. They were excited to relay back to the delivery room that there hadn't been. Someone said eagerly, you know, we had the first baby last year in OKC, and I think we may do it again this year. And just like that, I had a cheering squad encourage me to push, Mama, push. Believe me, I was already doing my part. I think the older doctor tired of their delivery room antics and decided he'd put an end to their little pep rally. I've delivered babies as early as 12:05 on January the 1st. I've never delivered a New Year's baby. This will not be the first baby of the year, trust me. And when he delivered our baby at 12:54, the nurses quickly checked one more time and cheered because our baby was indeed the first baby born in 1978 in Oklahoma City, weighing in at 7 pounds and 11 ounces. As they celebrated being first in OKC, I rejoiced that I was holding an adorable and beautiful little dark-headed, bright-eyed baby girl. She was one of 335, 996 babies born on that January the 1st in the United States. I don't think any one of them was more welcome than our little bundle. People often ask me whether there was a prize for having that first baby of the year in Oklahoma City. Well, yes and no. My reward was a 7 a.m. loud rap on my hospital room door. Was flung open as a nurse ushered in two cameramen, one from Channel 4 and one from Channel 5, and a news anchor, as well as a newspaperman. Mike and I often watched Linda Kavanaugh, the news anchor, on TV, and it was a treat to meet her. They were all eager to meet and take pictures of our little one. After all, she was Oklahoma City's newest little citizen. My first thought as they entered our room was, oh my, I can't imagine what I must look like. I begged the nurse for a hairbrush and mirror before those shutters snapped. Thankfully, she quickly opened the over the bed tray so I could peek at myself in the small mirror that flipped up. What I saw was one tired mama sporting dark circles under her eyes, enhanced by her bob with bangs that stuck straight up in the air. Oh my, I used my only resource I had in those few seconds, my fingertips and my spit, as I tried to make those unruly bangs lay down. Had also been told to lay flat for 24 hours following the spinal injection, but the bed was quickly rolled upright for a photo shoot as our sweet baby was placed in my arms. Cameras clicked as Janice Marie's first pictures were taken, and Mike and I were on TV by evening and in the newspaper by morning. Countless people clipped that newspaper picture and mailed it to us, congratulating us on our new baby. The newspaper guy had Mike's name wrong and introduced the parents of the New Year's baby as Mr. and Miss George Whitley. He, the newspaper guy, probably had celebrated a bit too much on New Year's Eve, but anyone who knew us recognized us. Little did we know that those pictures would be among the few ever taken of our normal little girl. Pictures taken before the trauma of January the 8th, the heartbreak. January the 8th, 1978, ensued with a frantic 2 a.m. drive to the ER where Jan had been born only the week before. Earlier that Saturday morning, I'm looking to see if I can pause this somewhere, but I don't see any way to pause. So I'll try to keep, let me take a drink. I'm so sorry. The allergies are terrible, the ragweed, and I'm allergic to it. So, okay, let's get back. I'll start over with the heartbreak. January the 8th, 1978 ensued with a frantic 2 a.m. drive to the ER where Jan had been born only the week before. Earlier that Saturday morning, I thought Jan's breathing was a little fast. I grabbed my trusted old baby book and searched for information on infant breathing patterns. Neither Google nor the internet had been invented back then. The baby book said that sometimes new parents become alarmed because they think their baby is breathing too rapidly, but newborns breathe at a faster rate. I assumed that I was just being an overprotective new mom. After all, I'd been sick with the virus the night before and I'd suffered a horrible side effect from that spinal block. My not laying flat for 24 hours following the injection had left me with a week of terrible migraines. So I thought my fatigue and migraine were affecting my judgment and that I was overreacting. Night came. Mike put Ben to bed and called it a night for himself. Even though Jen was sleeping soundly, I picked her up and I walked back and forth in the den, cradling her in my arms. The more I held her and walked, the more my apprehension grew. My mom had stayed up with me, sharing my concern. She had come from Mississippi to spend Christmas with us and to welcome her new grandbaby. Mother, I have this uneasy feeling that something is wrong with Jan. I don't know what to do. I decided to call the hospital nursery where she'd been born the week before. I was fortunate enough to talk with one of the sweet cheerleading nurses, and she remembered us well. I shared my concerns, and she asked a few questions and suggested that I continue to watch her carefully and call the doctor if there were any more symptoms. Sometime after midnight, as I still walked the floor holding Jan, I pulled off her booties. Her feet were purple. Being the innocent young woman I was, I thought her booties were too tight. But within minutes, purple splotches appeared on Jan's legs. A lump rose in my throat and my heart pounded. I knew something was terribly wrong. Because of the many people who'd visited our home over the past 2 days, I told myself that Jan had picked up a weird virus. I woke Mike and called our doctor as we rushed Jan to the same hospital where she'd been born. We made the drive in less than 15 minutes in spite of icy roads. Mike was scared. He'd seen the purple feet. And at one point, I asked him to please slow down because the roads were so treacherous and we were going so fast. By the time we walked into the emergency room, Jan's once rosy face was blue. And upon examination, the emergency room doctor said he detected a heart murmur. We just brought her home from the hospital 3 days before. Surely this couldn't be true. A heart specialist was called from Children's Hospital, and for the first time, I realized this was much more than a virus. Mike and I were sent to a private area to await the doctor's arrival. The specialist then came about 4 a.m. After examining Jan, he took us into a small room. He pulled up a chair and he sat down very slowly, as if allowing himself extra seconds to choose his words carefully. Looking into our eyes, he told us that our sweet Jan was in critical condition. In order for us to find out what type of heart problem your daughter has, we have to transfer her to Children's Hospital immediately. At this point, I know that she has one of 4 types of heart defects, and one of those is not repairable. We'll do a heart catheterization first, and it'll show us what we're dealing with. But I'll be honest with you, Jan is very, very weak. I don't know if she can survive the catheterization. I'm so sorry, but her chances of living right now are very slim. We stared at him in shock and disbelief. She'd been rated a 9 on the APGAR scale that determines the health of a newborn. Only 8 days before. How could this be? Jan would be transferred to Children's Hospital by ambulance. Since we wouldn't be permitted to ride with her, we were allowed to kiss her goodbye. Walking into her room, I felt dazed and overwhelmed. Jan was in an incubator, and with an oxygen mask, she still struggled for each breath. Her beautiful pink complexion was now dusky gray. It seemed a part of me was being destroyed, and I could only stand by helplessly and do nothing. Never had my arms felt so empty and my heart so crushed. I knew that my mother was probably still awake, waiting to hear the diagnosis. I couldn't bear to tell her such devastating news over the phone. She was in her 60s, and the loss of my dad had been so hard on her. Even though it was still dark outside, I located a payphone and I called my dear friend Judith, who lived just a few blocks from our home. She and her husband were the ones who spent New Year's Eve with us, and they'd been at the hospital New Year's morning when Jan was born. While Judith threw on her clothes, I called my mom and told her Judith was on her way and would explain what was going on. Mike and I took one last look at our chubby cheeked little girl as we each wondered if this was our final goodbye. Our hearts had never been so broken. In that long ago day, before cell phones or Google Maps, they'd given us verbal directions to Children's Hospital. So, with those instructions fresh in our mind, we rushed out into the icy morning. The drive to Children's seemed to take forever as the blowing snow glistened in the headlights of our car, and the Oklahoma wind whipped our vehicle. We drove cautiously, but also as fast as we dared. The nurses had advised us not to follow the ambulance as they cried while we said our goodbyes. Stunned by such a dire diagnosis, we hadn't understood that an ambulance had to come from Children's to pick up Jan, so we arrived several minutes ahead of her. When her arrival was delayed, we thought she had died en route. We were so distraught. While Mike filled out the hospital forms, I laid my head on the staff's desk as my head pounded with pain. I couldn't believe yet another tragedy was occurring. It had been less than 2 years since my dad's death. How I longed to go back to those days before the pain found its way into my life, a time when I felt sheltered from life's storm, a time before I'd boarded that train that Corey Ten Boom's dad spoke of. Now it seems such a long time ago. God's grace, keeping pace. I believe it was by the grace of God that I stayed awake on high alert that long ago Saturday night. Jan would have been gone when we woke up the next morning. In God's grace, He always sent people to walk beside us in our storms, too. Let's keep looking for glimpses of His grace. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a future and a hope. Jeremiah 29:11. I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you. Psalm 32:8. And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Romans 8:28. And humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due season. 1 Peter 5:6. End of chapter 3. Hmm. 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 Hmm.